Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're listening to this on your way somewhere amazing.
Is this my right mic? Can you see my thing moving?
I sure can.
Oh, that was a lucky thing.
This is the Parenting Unfiltered podcast where we have amazing guests that come on. We do a little chitty chat for you before you listen to the expert and talk about hot topics. And also, this is for the common parent members who are currently listening. And we just had a video go viral, and I think we talked about it before, but just having the journal available as, I don't know if the word's amnesty, like your place where you can say anything.
Like Amnesty International.
But for your kid. Mm-hmm. So if they do something, they know that it's okay.
It's a place where they can say.
Which is so good because we have the Fear of Teenagehood coming up with Kirsten
Cobabe.
We always say the name wrong.
I know. Cobabe.
Kirsten Cobabe. And we, it's really good because I think she gives us like a good intel into teenagehood and why we don't need to be so afraid of it. And the expert we had on yesterday that you guys would listen to on last Monday, was really about why kids' behaviors have to happen and what we can do to help them manage it. Because when she said that their risky behaviors or their behaviors are often to develop their executive functioning skills. Mm-hmm. So rather than managing them and telling them to not do things, how do you collaborate with them so they can get their reasoning in for themselves? Because if you just always tell them what to do, then they can't reason on their own.
You know how like it's all these things are so natural, like their behavior that feels like it's so like sometimes you just feel like, oh my God, you sound like such an idiot. You don't make any sense. Like you're making bad decisions. I wish that like every time that happened, and I know that this is what the experts help us like see. I wish that you could see like one of those, like a little TV screen came up and it was like, and it's like, if you don't let them experience this, then by the time they're on their own, they'll be missing this skill. It's sort of like that book. What would Danny do for kids?
Sorry. I've learned this freaking year you guys are going to think I'm the biggest idiot, but I'm just going to say it, is that if they don't, their developmental milestones have to happen so that they can get the foundations for reading, for writing. It basically lays the groundwork for their later development in years. No one told me that. Like, rolling over, all of that stuff. I guess they're like, have they hit them? And you're kind of like, yeah, but you don't know why it's important for them to hit them. But it's almost like they have to roll over, sit up, crawl, walk, because I have one who didn't crawl properly and his one side they've had to work on waking up his one side. I wish I had known the reason why it's important. I'm like, yeah, he's moving.
You know, it's so crazy though. That's an us thing because parents are obsessed with milestones, and
but doctors, do they know why?
They know why.
Oh, so it's
and
you and
doctors
me.
Have to like literally like calm down parents because they're so obsessed with milestones.
I think that milestones. I knew that they had to hit the milestones. I just never knew for what.
Well, and also if your doctor tells you that you've hit them, then you're fine.
And also you're like, yeah, he's crawling.
But they also said that they had to do tummy time and how important it was, and not one of my kids did tummy time.
I disagree. They did. I saw them and they cried.
They would do it for seconds.
But you tried them to do it.
Like barely.
And a lot of them slept on their stomachs when they could roll over.
I mean, maybe, but that tummy time thing, like I remember that always being a thing. Like I could see other people doing it and they'd be like, work on it. And I would do it and they'd cry immediately. So I would stop. Like I never, and then for the last ones, I realized the first ones, it didn't really get me anywhere because I tried it with Taylor and she hated it. So the next ones, I never did it, but they were like, it's so important. And I see like my nieces and nephews now and their parents are putting them on the tummy and they're happy on their tummy time. It's like their favorite place. I'm like, you're so lucky, because that was something I always felt guilty about because I didn't do it. And I would tell my doctor I did it. I didn't do it.
Well, at least you told them, because I would just lie.
No,
you would say you
yeah,
of
course
too.
I said I did it because I didn't want it. Because I didn't want any more pressure.
But we didn't know why. And I feel like
I heard it was because then you need to strengthen the neck muscles, because otherwise they won't be able to pull themselves up and walk properly. They won't walk when they're supposed to. Well, none of that happened. So I'm like,
I guess the whole point is, though, to bring it back to teenagehood, is that their behaviors and the things they're doing are developmentally, and I kind of touched on this 2 weeks ago, is important because they have to go through it in order to get to the next phase. And if we're constantly changing things, and if we're constantly trying to like overmanage, or keep them in these tiny bumpers, developmentally, they're going to sacrifice somewhere else. It's like we keep delaying development because us as parents think it's not normal.
Yeah.
So we keep being like, no, I'll fix this for you. No, I'm going to make this easier for you. And we're really screwing them in the long run, because developmentally they have to go through this. And that was the big thing, I think, with the phone. And what we were talking about the other week is risky behavior, and risky behavior is actually developmental, and they need to do it. But we've become so afraid of everything that now we're like, oh, just don't do that. Go on your phone. And then they go on their phone. I'm like, well, risky behavior is just going to come out in a different way. If it developmentally has to happen, where's it going to go? So all of these things that we're delaying is so crazy. And I think that when Kirsten talks about this whole thing of teenagehood and the fear of it, that's really what it's about. Like being like afraid of them to grow up, to do the things. She was saying where you'll be in the coffee shop, and you'll have a young kid, and then everyone's like, oh, and the toddler's like throwing it down. And you're like, just you wait till the teen years. It's coming for you. It's like this narrative has been for so long. Just you wait. The teen years are coming. And I'm like, why do we do this?
Yeah, I don't know. And then now when we're at our live shows, and then there's like a lot of like grandmas that come, they're like, oh gosh, wait till they're in their 20s. I'm like, whoa. Like, well, how about, and I really like the people who shed the light on how amazing it can be, and how great it can be, because I think if you just understand where they're coming from, if you need to look into it, and you're a part of our membership, and you go and you can search different topics, and it gives you what you need to feel supported in that moment, you can actually find some peace and understanding. And if you understand them, then, and you understand why they're behaving this way, it makes you feel so much better, instead of just rejecting this attitude, this behavior, these opinions.
It's, you know what it is? You know what parenting is? It's basically a misunderstanding. We misunderstand our teenagers, so we get mad at them for not understanding them. They're just trying to develop and grow, literally, and we expect them to be adults when they're 13, and we can't understand why their behaviors don't match up with something that as an adult, because often they look like bigger adults and the expectations are so high, but they've never been taught. They've never lived the life. But then we get mad at them for when they can't figure it out. And you're like, you can't figure it out most of the time. Like as adults, you can't figure it out, but then you have a higher expectation, especially with moods and behaviors. The irony of yelling at your kids for yelling blows my mind.
It works if you yell at them, even if they don't yell back at you in that moment, tomorrow they're going to yell at you. And you have to remember they're yelling because that's what you told them. That's how we're going to communicate.
Yeah. Or when they get like in a fit about something, and then someone in your house who also gets in a fit when they're like, why can you have a hissy fit, but they can't? Why is it? It's so reasonable when it's someone else's behavior. But when it's yours, it's so reasonable. But when it's someone else's, like your kids, it's so unreasonable. So it's so interesting that we just do this to our teenagers.
And it's also it's so weird being in this time right now, because I feel like we have been hit with so much more information that's coming from all different places, from like authors, books, speakers, social media. So as a parent, you're even more confused about what's right and wrong. And it's easier to compare your parenting style and your teens to others because they're right there in your face. I think about our parents. I'm like, I don't think they sat and they thought too much about it.
Because no one was talking about it.
So they were probably felt a lot more alone.
And they didn't know what the hell was going on.
No. But now we do have more things to worry about. But we're also bombarded with so much information, which is why we have this, so we can succinct everything into one small place. So no matter what you hear, you've already decided, where you stand and what kind of parent you want to be. And we would always encourage everyone to be an informed parent, like a prepared parent as best as you can be.
Yeah. And you'll be surprised at I always say to people, when you see the best version of your child, that's often who they're going to become. But let them have moments where they're not the best version of themselves, because they're still so new in this world. So if you let them have their versions of themselves, that's trying to figure out who they are, and they'll go through really bad phases. But when you see that good version, that's who they are.
So, and here's like a specific example for me. Like, I have had a kid who has been like, it's like there's been lots of good versions of this kid, and slowly but surely, and like I hear from other people, I hear from schools, the good part, but then there's a big part that obviously is the bad,
the phase that we're in that we don't
phase.
love.
And this one is slowly but surely weaning itself out. And that small part is becoming less and less. And I said to him, and I said to Kat, and I said, like 90% of you is like there. It's the person you're going to be, and I'm loving it. So if you could just get rid of that 110%.
Yeah.
And I was like, but eventually it'll wean out when he finally is fully developed. But that one thing, I'm like, you're so close to being great.
I remember that.
I really think every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I thought we were there. Like, I thought you were 25. I thought
we had launched you.
And then I'm like, no. You still do need to have that part, because obviously if you didn't have that part, you wouldn't be normal.
You would not be normal.
Because you have to have your way to experiment through teenagehood.
Well, yeah. And if that's a rebellion, that's pretty damn amazing.
It's early years, but still, yeah.
It is early years. We forget how young they are.
I know.
We really do forget.
It's hard to forget. It's hard to remember because they're young. Like, some of them aren't even in high school. But then some are in their second last year. Like,
no, she's still got 3 more years. She's not there yet. She's 2 years in 4 or 5 months. A lot happened.
2 years of school in a month and a month of school.
Yes. But between now and September, we have to remember how much they develop between now and September.
Mm-hmm.
So their developmental years are so mad. Like it's
no,
like
I
their
know,
dog
it's
years.
just that is going fast for some of them. But then again, Chloe and TJ are taking forever.
Grade 3. Guys, I hope you enjoy this interview that come up. Kirsten Cobabe is on the Fear of Teenagehood. Listen, she has some amazing advice about why we should not fear these people in our house that can sometimes wreak havoc.
Okay, guys, we are so excited to have back again with us Kirsten Cobabe, who is a former therapist turned coach, teen and parent whisperer, and artist, specializes in supporting families navigate the waves of adolescence that we're living in right now. And for the past 25 years, she has guided parents in learning how to listen to and talk with their teens. Her mission is to bridge the widening gap between parents and their children, creating conscious, stronger bonds. Kirsten empowers families to pilot these pivotal years with deeper awareness.
True.
Oh my gosh. I'm just right there. The widening gap between parents and their children. Is that like a newer thing, or meaning as they are no longer babies and toddlers, the widening happens? Or is it more right now?
I feel like it's both. There's this part of it that's natural, right? That space that's needed during this more autonomy, more independent stage. And then there's also some unique hurdles and barriers that you guys know well that are occurring right now, whether it be tech or hating school or what other distractions are going on in the world. So it's a little of both.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much that our teens and adolescents are dealing with and going through in so many different categories that as parents, we really don't have the experience with. So trying to talk to them and understand where they're coming from, we're not coming in a place of experience.
Yeah, a lot of us didn't really, not everybody, but a lot of us didn't have that modeled for us. And there's maybe not great models. We're starting to see it more than ever. There's lots of these conversations happening. And yeah, sometimes it can feel like I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. What do I say here? And really teens are looking for their parents to be real. And then it's like, wait, how real though? How honest? How?
I think one of the struggles is that when we're supposed to know as parents, right? Like you kind of have your parents on a pedestal that like they know everything and you sort of look to them to know everything. And that's how you grow up from 0 to 12 is kind of thinking that they're law. And well, my parents said so. So you believe it. And right now in teenhood, parents actually don't know. And so we're already coming from a disadvantage when you don't know. And so it's like they kind of lose trust in you. And I'm just sort of making this up as I go, but I can assume it's like they're trying to get guidance in their life from an expert who's never actually studied, seen, or lived in the world. And we're supposed to know how to help navigate them through it. But we don't know what we're talking about. And they've even changed the language. Like they're actually speaking differently and like they speak differently than we did. And we have no credit with them. That's what I feel. I feel
like overall we have hypothesis of how this is going to affect them later on, but nobody really knows for sure.
Yeah. And so we're all just like brushing with these broad strokes of being in fear because we don't know. So we're all feels like if we're really fear-based right now. And I hate this stage of parenting in fear. And are you seeing this? Like, what are some of the things teens and parents are feeling right now
in your practice or what you're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on there. I think this is massive right now, which is why listening is one of the key pillars to making it through. And that's not as simple as it sounds sometimes, right? It also means you have to have like a pretty authentic connection, and your teen has to be willing and trusting you enough to be able to share, and you have to know how to listen. And yeah, this is what we're seeing a lot. A ton of teens are saying, I try to talk and I get a lecture or I get in trouble, right? Or they don't get it, but they're not asking me to kind of inform them. Because actually we have a lot we can learn from teens, whether it's about ChatGPT and AI, or what's hard about school for them, or what's really tricky with their friendships. We have a lot we can learn. We can still be supportive and guides and still be leaders, but we're not going to know what to do if we don't know what's going on and what they're actually dealing with, which is why that listening piece is so massive.
And when that listening piece is massive, and I'm thinking about times when a parent wants to listen to their kid and they want them to tell them what's going on with their friendships, their relationships, school. What is a way that if right now we feel like they're just like going to the room and not really talking to us, and we know more is going on because we can see it in the moods, and naturally it would be, how do you get them to start trusting that you can sit and listen without getting mad?
I love that question. And one of the ways I see this successfully happen is if you, the parent, can walk in and go, I've really missed the boat. I realized the other day when you blah, 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 you started talking about this, and I kind of lost my shit. Or I responded this way and I wish I had responded this way. Without any, but it was a long day and all these, right? Just being accountable for that and going, wow. And that's just normal. We would say that to a friend, right? Like, oh, shoot, I totally didn't hear you yesterday. You were talking about your divorce or whatever, right? And I didn't fully become present. I wasn't with you in that. And teens really, I think, respect when we can show up like that for them and have a lot of forgiveness. And they still have to kind of see it change, just like we need to see their behavior change, right? But they're looking to their parents to kind of show them accountability, responsibility, what is listening, what's connecting. Otherwise, they're going to be like, I got friends for that.
Where I can relate, I'll share my own experience, and where I find it hard as a parent is there's such finite time, and you feel like you have to get so much in that finite time. And I just even mean in the evenings, or like so it sort of feels like you're in a relationship where it's like you have to make sure they're ready to grow up. You have to make sure they're doing their homework. You have to make sure that they're not sending nudes. You have to make sure that they're like, there's all of these things you feel like if you don't have the conversation with them, how do you know they know? That's just my own struggle, where I don't ever want to assume that they just know better, because I think that that's where all teenagers and parents get in trouble, is they just know better. So it's like, how are we balancing connection, letting them guide the relationship, but also steering this boat in the right direction so they feel like we're still the leaders of a boat we don't really understand, without just a connection, because communication with them is often confusing, one-sided, or they'll say things and you're kind of like, oh, did you just say that? Like, that's not, well, like, can we regroup on that? And that's not how you should have handled that, or whatever. Just something, how do we validate them, but also get a lesson in there so they're not going to go send a nude?
Yeah, no, you're reading my mind. These are some of the things that, I'm always thinking about and supporting people. It's a lot of preparation. And I think what's so hard about what you're talking about is that parents are very busy right now. It's not like there's one parent at home and one parent at work. I mean, sometimes, but not for a lot of families, right? And so I'm balancing myself. I'm trying to, inform my teen. I'm also trying to have a relationship with them, and then, relationship with maybe your spouse or their parent, right? Their other parent. So,
and your other children.
And your other children and your own life. And it's a lot right now. This is a very tricky time, and it's a lot for teens too.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, it's true. It's just like there's not even enough time in the day. And so it does become a lot about quality over quantity. And yeah, before you give your 15-year-old or 13-year-old or however your kid is old when you give them a phone, hey, here's what's normal and here's what's not normal. Here's what's healthy, here's what's not. Here's what we do and here's what we don't do. And you make these kind of contracts beforehand and you talk about it. Not like, you can't do this, but none of us can do this. Like, this is, whatever the thing is, that's not appropriate, but we can do these things. And here's how we do that. Some people will have family group chats for a while to make sure the really, younger kid kind of gets it before. So that's like baby steps towards something else. It's a lot of intention though. It's like, we're going to miss stuff. We can't prepare them for every single thing because sometimes life throws something at us we didn't even think we needed to prepare them for, unfortunately. I mean, hopefully.
I guess that's growing up, right? I guess that's part of us having to let go and let them grow up a little bit without knowing they're going to make mistakes. I think that, when we go back to fear and this whole conversation around fear-based parenting, because that's what we're hearing a lot about in the news and in sort of it's the chatter. How are teens feeling right now? How are they feeling? I feel like it's a lot about the parents. What do you think teens are feeling right now? And how can we connect with them when it feels like I feel like we're othering them. We're sort of like, they're 4 or 5 years into the phones and now everyone's like, they're terrible. Get rid of them. Switch stuff. It's like, oh my God, they're rewiring your brain. Mental health. You're all, it's sort of the conversation is crazy. It feels crazy.
It does feel crazy. And we can't just take them away. I mean, there might be circumstances where that needs to happen in a particular scenario, right? But generally speaking, tech is part of our life. We need to model what having a healthy relationship with it looks like. And we actually need to engage our children in that and keep them as much as we can informed and away from the terrifying, you can't undo this sort of stuff. And then also, what do they like doing on that? Maybe they want to start a freaking business, right? There's actually a lot of magic when we use it as a tool, just like a hammer, just like anything. And of course, they're hardwired to be sensitive to, phones, and phones are designed rather to be so stimulating and addicting. So yeah, a little bit of it's like, okay, I know that some of this is going to hurt and I have to just be prepared for some heartbreak in this stage. And also, how can I, if my teen, for example, hates school, like how can I meet them in that? Or if they love their phone and they want to make YouTube videos, how can I meet them in that? And how can I actually try to understand what this life is like for them? And what I see over and over again is that teens feel like no one understands them or their parents don't understand them. And they feel incredibly overwhelmed. And it's just like, it's impossible to ignore now. It's just bubbling up. And that's why everyone's talking about it and maybe blaming the phone, which yes, it's impacted it, but we can't just be like, this is all the phone's fault. Because that's just, from my perspective, not completely accurate and almost like a cop out, because we actually need to be accountable because we are creating this environment. Teens are responding naturally to very unnatural environments, to a lack of preparation and insight and being held, right? They need guidance and as they're walking through this path, but not in the way that's like, do as I say, right?
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be meaningful.
What do you think right now when you see these kids that are overwhelmed and you're so right. It's like, oh, you're overwhelmed. Get off your phone. You feel anxiety. Get off your phone. What other things are teens feeling overwhelmed about right now?
There's some teens who are feeling overwhelmed by school and homework. At least in this, there's never been more homework. They're getting up way too early for school. I mean, we've known this forever. It's been studied to death and we still haven't changed a whole lot. This is a very ancient, not even ancient. It's actually sort of new still, but it was all designed in a very specific era for very specific reasons. And it's so different now. The world is so different. And teens are overwhelmed because they're not moving their bodies. They're inside all day. They're waking up too early. They're not getting proper sleep or nutrition. There's no time for friends. School is boring beyond belief for most of them. They're super smart and clever and interested in like innovative, meaningful, collaborative conversations and solutions, but I don't have time for that is kind of what it ends up being. And they're just toast. And so, and then they get the memo of you just got to suck it up. And it's like, am I the only, like they're thinking, does no one else see what I'm going through? Or like who, then they just want to, they'll talk to their friends about it forever. And that's why they want to be with their friends. They get it.
I mean, I feel this on so many levels because I think even as a parent, when I'm consuming online and I see parents who are like, I'm burnt out, I'm touched out, I'm traumatized out. Then the other ones who are like, it goes by so fast, enjoy it. Like there's so much what we should be doing, right? Like we should be. And I'm wondering if teens are feeling like even the chatter around how terrible the things they love are must feel so must just feel like, again, like you guys are you told us to not like to stay on the devices for 2 years to do school. And now it's sort of like, that's terrible. Like, it's sort of, I feel badly for them, to be honest with you, because I feel like we're taking them, we're like, now this, now that, now this, now
We're
that.
making them feel bad for the thing that just comes naturally to them. It's like all the teens want to like survive, like be in this world, but they're feeling like guilted, like they're doing something bad,
Yeah.
and they're being punished for it. But it's really it's their natural way, and it was a lot during COVID.
I saw a comment recently in one of the chat forums, and it was interesting because the teen was so right, but one of the parents said, my child's on honor roll, they babysit, they're like they do after school clubs, they're like, for all intents purposes, like doing everything they should as a teen. But they get an hour of screen time, and that's what we argue over now. They're saying that I don't trust them based on me not letting them have more screen time. And in my brain, I'm like, well, you're telling them you don't because you're punishing them for something they're asking more of when they're doing everything else you're requesting of. And I only bring up screen time because I know that, for a lot of parents, this is a pain point right now. And this is something that I'm sure you're seeing where it's sort of the struggle of, I feel like in parenting right now, we're trying to navigate it, but in the screens and as parents, what do kids wish we knew in terms of, are they finding it as damaging as we're hearing it is? Or are you seeing people being like, I can't handle, like, what is that conversation from your experience? I know this is just a snippet of
Because
the big
teens
picture.
talk to you.
They do. Yeah. I talk to teens a lot. I hear a lot about their perspective, and there's a range. For some, they're like, I don't even want to be on my phone, but I don't know what else to do. And I'm so tired and tapped. Other teens are like, oh, this is a source of magic and connection for me. And I have a lot of fun here, and I connect with my friends, and it's safe and beautiful. So there is a range, and it really does depend. Some people are much more sensitive to the stimulation, or if there's bullying or something negative happening, of course, like these are tricky scenarios and require care and attention and a lot of energy. And then for other kids, it's not really a thing. They're like, what are you talking about? I play some games, and then we make plans, and I go hang out with them in real life or whatever. And I'm good, So there's quite a range, just like there is with adults too. And yeah, going back to what you said earlier, Kat, it's like if the adults are all freaking out and being reactive, then that must feel really intense for teens, especially when it's being pointed at them and they're bad and wrong for doing the thing that we've given them and been encouraged. Or because a lot of these kids grew up with iPads when it was helpful for the parent to have them on their iPad.
Boom.
That reminds me so much of like when people are like, kids always want to take like photos of everything that's happening, and it's so natural for them to pick up their phone, but yet they had their parents in their face taking pictures of them since they were born. Oh, stop. Oh, that look. What's it? And so then they're literally doing what we did, and now we're saying, put your phone down and enjoy the experience. Or take a picture of it.
Your life is documented on Facebook.
Yes, it's very confusing for them. But it is. I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways, like nobody's really wrong. It's great to have this conversation and to really look into it. But we're not trying to be we're not trying to be hypocrites. It's just we're like we don't know, just trying to figure it out.
We don't. It's like breaking news constantly.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. It sort of feels like, breaking news, and you're like, oh, it is really. And ironically, we're all getting the message from social media.
Yeah,
how bad it's going.
Exactly.
Kirsten, when we often hear, and one of the reasons that we wanted to start the Common Parent and why we love to have conversations about being a mom and everything is, sorry, my husband just called twice. I'm like, oh, please don't tell me it was in school, but it's okay. Fine. He's got a dad. Carry on. Is that teenagers get a bad rap. Like everyone's like, ugh, those teenagers are so disrespectful. They're so annoying. The way that they talk to me, and everyone gets into this like conversation about how bad teens are. Even before our kids were teens, they're like, wait till they're teens.
I feel like I never want to be a teenager.
Yeah, because I hear how everyone talks about them. What are some like misconceptions that people think teens are, but they're actually not, but that's what it looks like through the behavior that we're seeing?
Yeah, this is huge. And we get this message a lot. Well, probably, I mean, I know I heard it even as a teen, right? A lot of us get this message and we remember it. It's in our subconscious still somehow that this is the bad time and I'm bad for being this age. And so what's happening for a lot of teens is they're called selfish and entitled, right? Pretty often.
Yes.
And so when I hear this, it's like, yes, they are. This is a self-oriented phase. It is literally about their identity, who I am separate from my mom and my dad, my values and all of this stuff. This is actually critical. And if we studied child development in school, we would know about Erik Erikson's stages of development and what's natural and normal and not. And actually, if we don't go through one phase, we're going to get stuck and not be able to get to the next, which actually I feel like is one of the saddest things about childhood right now is it almost doesn't feel like there is a childhood. And it makes me wonder if we're going to have perpetual children because we're not actually having a full, real, playful, fun childhood with all those important stages. And then it's who would want to be an adult, especially if the adults are constantly complaining. And so it's interesting. And so when I hear they're selfish, right, it's like, yeah, absolutely. So this is a perfect time to be like, tell me about you. Tell me all the things. What do you hate? What do you love? What's hard? What's easy? What do you wish it was like? Right? Because they actually want to talk to you guys. Like they so want to share their lives with you. And that's another thing I hear a lot.
Really? Actually, even if you feel like you've got some grunting teenager who's never talked, they actually want the opportunity to tell you about their lives.
They do. They just do not want to hear your opinion, your advice, your lecture, or anything. That's the trick.
Okay.
It's so hard. However, that will come around, right? As we listen, if you think of it 80-10, 80-20 or 90-10 or something, right? You listen, keep listening, more listening, keep biting your tongue so hard. And then eventually it's like, I kind of thought about this. Are you open to hearing it? And they'll probably be like, yeah. Because they're so fed in that way.
It also starts when they're younger, right? Like it's hard to flip the relationship when you are, when you don't give them the space to talk, when you're constantly talking about direction, like go here, do this, like you don't get to actually, you don't actually get to teach them that you're there to listen, to hear, to have that conversation. And I often think about, when parents, how you react matters so much to whether it's like spilt milk or like a grade or, all of it's subtle clues that they begin to learn how you'll react when they're going to share something with you. And I think so often we miss clues when they talk about their friends. So they want to share, but it's an insight into how you'll react about their lives if they were to share the same thing. And they'll say, oh, so-and-so does this. And then if you're like, oh my, it's so, they're so tricky, but they're so smart to do that. So we can see what we're going to say about it, right? They're testing the waters.
Absolutely. They're like, is it safe? Is it safe to mess up? Is it safe to talk about this? Can my parent hold this big stuff with me? Or are they just going to lose it and I have to find someone else to hold it? And we really want to hold it with them, right? Because not everybody is a safe person to go to. And so hopefully too, what I love about asking questions like, what's that like for you? That helps them trust their inner compass and guidance and that sixth sense that they have that we want them to have. That's like so sensitive to that bullshit, right? We want them to have that because it's a safety mechanism. And so they have it, unfortunately, with their parents too, of like, no, I don't think you're being straight with me, or I don't believe you're.
I know. It's so true. When you say they're missing their childhood, I mean, that kind of made me stop in my tracks. What does that mean? Like when they're not getting it anymore?
Yeah. Childhood meaning there's like playful freedom, like getting muddy, messing up, kind of having a long summer night with friends. I hear from a lot of the teens in my life, I just want to have a crush and to like have a note passed to me or like someone to hold my hand or like just go run around with all my friends and just be silly. And instead it's like whether it's, TikTok stuff or homework or whatever the pressures are, they're feeling a little bit like there's not the opportunity or the time. And I think, the past few years have sort of shifted things dramatically. A lot of people have moved around. There might be more fear about a lot of different things. And so, yeah, I know that they want that innocence still. It's like their last chance for it. And they kind of know.
What age are you seeing that, like, are we over programming? Are we not letting, what are we missing as parents at what age? Like, what are we doing? And how do we kind of give them the permission to do, like, what if they're not motivated to do it? Like, what if their phone is more entertaining for them than going out and meeting someone?
Yeah, that's That's a great question, right? And so that's the place to start, is always where they are. It's like, oh, show me all the things that you love about your phone, or even that you hate, but you find yourself immersed in. Like, I want to see, I want to know, and like be with them in it. If you can do that, then you'll gather information about what's actually happening. And then you can be like, wow, I can see how hard this is to either move away from this or trust that asking that girl that you think is nice to be your friend, that could feel scary because it's so much more vulnerable than this world on the phone. And I'm here for it. Like, we can figure this out together.
So basically, our whole point as parents is to allow them to have a voice without making them feel bad about their voice, but fostering it through like constant communication. But when do we step in? I mean, I feel really bad for parents right now. And I know I talk to a lot of people who are in their 20s or like, you know, who didn't grow up with the teen. And like, I'm so glad not to be a kid right now, which they're closer to that than we were, you know, they had phones, but they didn't have the pressure of social media. How can we keep them in touch with, how can we let them communicate on Snapchat without taking away the fundamentals of childhood? Like, and I don't mean just like screen time limits. I just mean in terms of, what are we doing as parents? Because I think we're accountable too. What are we doing wrong that, you know, we're the leaders still of the family. We're still their, you know, their touch point. Are we not doing things the same? Are we not having people, like, what are we doing so we can at least not just blame them?
I think we are pathologizing and mentalizing everything, and so serious that we've forgotten ourselves how to be playful. And I think there's a lot of stress in a home. Not every home, of course. This is very generally speaking, but I also feel really bad for parents right now. I have a lot of empathy for parents, and I have a lot of compassion for just what they're up against, because not only is just life so expensive, but right? Like, everything's just exploding almost right now. And it's, of course, we're going to sort of, people are going to feel like they're crumbling and very stressed. There's so many facets to this. And so can we be honest about what's happening and what it's like, rather than pointing fingers and blaming, especially blaming children? I mean, gosh, they're just reflecting the reality that the world is in. Confusion, stress. And so can we be playful? Can we be honest? Can we be authentic? Can we also have enough maturity to, for example, with the punishment piece, say, absolutely, you can have friends over and the house needs to be quiet by 11, instead of sure, have friends over and then get mad at everyone for being loud at midnight, right? This is the kind of simple stuff we can do to just think ahead and prepare and let them know, because they actually aren't trying to be assholes when they're messing up. They just don't know where those edges are. So yeah, can we be playful, honest? Can we slow down enough to think about, what does my child actually need and how can I best support them? Because perhaps their bad behavior is because I didn't, I didn't prepare them, or I didn't hear them, or I wasn't present. And not in a blaming way, but if they are reflecting to some degree what's happening with us, and they are very in tune with their parents' inner state, that's their first language. They've known it since they were inside of you. They know you.
What can we do for them? Like, how can we, what are some things that we can actually do as parents to help them kind of like not take on the worries of the world, which I feel like we're putting on them? How can we, like, what are tangible things we can do that they wish parents would do with them, for them? Like, what are we all missing right now? Or what do you think that your practice, you're seeing they're missing?
Yeah, there's more criticizing than there is curiosity, and that kills connection. So we can be curious, which just means like, tell me more. Oh, wow. Even if they're complaining their ass off and they are just having a day, it's like, oh yeah, I would probably feel that way too, right? Like, of course they're going to have bad days. Their emotional center limbic system is all fully developed and firing all the time, and their prefrontal cortex is just like not there yet. So it's messy up there emotionally. They don't have the planning skills, the executive functioning. We're asking them to do a lot of things that are sometimes above what they're capable of doing. This isn't
is complaining developmentally like appropriate? Like, I feel like teenagers complain. So, like, is that something they do universally? Like, they just like
yes.
to talk? Okay.
I think it is. Like, and I mean, I also think that they're seeing a lot of adults do this. Like, let's be real. There's plenty of adults that are just like, acting younger than their age, perhaps, and aren't, the most mature versions of themselves. And so they're seeing some of this modeled. And in this particular stage and age, the reason I think they're complaining, from what I know about this, is that their eyes are opening to kind of the horrors of the world in a new way. Like when you're 4 and 5, you're not like, oh, there's war and famine and all this horrible stuff happening. When you're a teen, you're like, wait, there's some effed up stuff going on. Why are we not talking about it? Why am I learning algebra instead of talking about what's actually happening now? And so they really want to talk about this stuff. And whether it's complaining about their friend and what they texted their other friend, or if they're like, oh my gosh, the world is crazy, we got to make space for that. And what I see more every time, actually, when I make space for that, the negativity and the complaining, they walk all the way through it. If I can keep listening, and then they get to the end and go, but here's what's okay. Or like, and I think this is also true. And they find their way to gratitude and what is good and working for them or whatever it is. But they can't quite get there if we don't let them have that other process. Because life is not just positive and it'd be great if it was all just like magic all the time. But I think that's one of the paths that teenagers have towards gratitude. It doesn't work when we say just be grateful. We're missing a whole chunk of their life when we do that.
Totally. Yeah, no, and I feel like they connect on that sometimes. Like they bond on drama. Like they'd love to talk about like drama and and find like, can you believe it's like gossip. That's what they connect on often.
Yeah, and we can actually bring in awareness there. Like, isn't it interesting how our mind notices the negative and the gossip? Like, because there's a reason our brain does it. It was actually a safety skill like a long time ago. Because it was a safety.
Really?
Yeah, it was like, well, that's the dangerous person. So we're hardwired to remember where the danger is so that we don't go to that cave or go to that community, right?
Oh my God, that makes
where the bears are.
Sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
So
why do they perpetuate it? They talk, because they talk about the person who was being the bad. Oh my gosh, that makes so much. It's like a light bulb moment. That makes so much. So gossip is just the venue for what was bad. It's just biology being like, oh my God, that was so bad. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like learning from what was bad.
Exactly. That's at least one lens and one that I find helpful, because then we can actually even have conversations about the brain, our moods, our emotion, and not like a school class or lecture, but it's like it can tie in and that stuff. Some teens are really into that, like noticing what their brain is doing and understanding it. They actually want to learn. They just want to learn real information.
That's very true. So if we're leaving here today and we feel overwhelmed as parents and we feel like we don't know which way is up, and we're not sure where our teens are, like we don't know emotionally where they are, we don't know, like we don't think they're depressed, but we don't know if they're happy, like how it's really hard to know where your teen emotionally is. Maybe it's easier that when you're stepping away from them, but like what are we looking for in terms of a teen who's emotionally well situated, or things are going okay, and what are some things we're looking for that are letting us know, okay, hey, things are okay, we don't have to go into like level 10 crisis mode. What does that look like when a teen and a parent's relationship is good? And there might be conflict. I'm not saying it's conflict free, nothing's conflict free, but what is the attachment or whatever we're looking for?
Yeah, conflict actually can even sometimes be a sign that it's good. Your teen has some fire and some spice, and they have some opinions, and they have a zest for life. This is sometimes comes through with like, no, I don't agree with you, or like, I want to do what I want. Great. Okay. That, I mean, it's not fun or easy, but that can be really healthy, right? Some of that can even help kind of move them and catapult them into this next phase of their development. They're no longer little. It's a hard transition, but sleeping, eating, and being at least sort of social. These are important things. These are human things.
What does sort of social look like?
Well, for some teens, that's like, oh, I have all these friends I play a game with online. There's some teens who are very, very introverted and wired this way more and more, especially if we're talking about like neurodiverse or anything like that. And then for other teens, it's like they're going out with their girlfriends every weekend or having sleepovers or whatever, is normal for.
I guess community, you're looking if they have a community outside of like their bedroom that's not just like a one-way relationship on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And hopefully they have a little bit of one with their parents too. It's just not entirely, it's really natural for them to not tell you as much as they once did.
And do you, should we be having, is there light moment? Like if it's 24/7 just anger, are we concerned or is that a phase?
There's likely something going on in it, but I don't mean like a warning, red alert, but there might be something bugging them and they might need some support. And so it kind of brings us back to, I've noticed that it seems like there's something that's really frustrating. Not like you're frustrated and you shouldn't be, right? That's often the message they get. But like there's something that is frustrating.
Your mood isn't what it usually is. What's going on?
Yeah. What's your problem? It's more like, sometimes life can throw us things that are very hard. And it can be uncomfortable to be angry or frustrated or sad. Like some of these emotions are actually so new to them and they're in such heightened ways that it's nice to hear, sometimes we're pissed. Sometimes we feel really sad. Sometimes we're like, I don't even want to get up today. I mean, especially for girls, if we're looking at their monthly cycle, if their hormones are kind of in that flux state, right? It's like every week's going to look different.
Right.
And every day can look different too. And so making space for that, sometimes I am just so over everything and normalizing that is human. Sometimes we wake up just like, nope, not today.
True. Yeah. I think that's really hard to let kids have moments when we expect them to not, we expect them to do it all, be it all, have it all, and then get perfect grades on top of it all.
Exactly. Perfect grades and want to go to college and all this stuff. And they were like your 4-year-old little sweetheart probably that was like following you around and pretty happy all the time, except for when they didn't get cake. It's like that was simple. That was nice.
Holy cow. We have so much to digest as parents. It's pretty crazy. Where can people find you? And I mean, the Teen Whisperer, I think that you just bring a sense of calm to probably normalizing, validating what the teens need to hear is like, it's okay. I think all of us need to hear it's going to be okay. Like we can trust a little bit more. It's going to be okay.
I love that message. Really, there is like nature's on our side. There's a reason that this stage of development is happening. It's important. The more we understand it, the more we can trust that. And we can say, yeah, this sucks. And like, we're going to figure it out. And people can find me at Kirsten Cobabe or KirstenCobabe.com. And I always love talking with you. And it's not easy right now.
I do want to remind parents that at one point, Elvis shook his hips and everyone went crazy and banned him and the government got involved and they said it was too sexual and he was ruining people's lives. So I feel like that's where we're back again, like Elvis and then like the swinging 70s where people were having orgies or whatever they were doing. I feel like we're like back in a moment of like pivotal change. And so everyone is, and then they're going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, do you remember when the government, that's what I have to remind people, remember, this is not a new sensation in society, because if they went buck wild over music, you can only imagine the significance of this, what it's going to be long term,
Exactly. And some of this is preparing us for what's next. We are going to want our teens to know how to work with tech. We're going to need them, right? And so here we go.
I have a child with learning challenges, and it's changed his life in the best way, and I think he communicates more with people because of tech. So for me, I see a positive in it. So I think people do have to look at, I think boys are communicating more because of tech. I think they're engaging with friends more because they're communicating over text and like talking probably more than if they didn't have that and they had to go find a friend and call them on the phone, and say, do you want to hook up? So I think that there is, just my 2 cents, I think there is some positives. Let's not all get lost in the hole of, oh my God, it's over.
It's easy to do that, right? The sky is always falling. And so, a blanket statement is not exactly the same blanket for everybody. Like you're saying, a lot of families are right there with you having really positive experiences. So,
Right.
And find your people, find supports, because parenting is not supposed to be done alone. I wholeheartedly believe that we are supposed to have people around us, helping us, supporting us.
Totally agree. Thank you for joining us. Have fun in Hawaii. Like, I don't know how you could have a bad day in Hawaii. And gosh, you had a dream. You're like, I want to live there, and there you are. So congratulations on making that happen.
Kat, you're the best. I love you guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, we miss you. And maybe we'll come to Hawaii.
I would love that.
I would love it more. Oh, thank you so much.